rising sign is the most personal placement in your birth chart, and when I'm talking about your rising sign, I'm talking about you and how you see things, your overall personality and your perspective of the world. It's also very much the energy that you give off when you go out and how people first see you, people's first impressions of you basically. It's one of the big three things to know about yourself, whatever your sun, moon and rising sign is. But the reason why I say that the rising sign is the most personal placement is because it essentially lays out and sets the order and foundation for the rest of your birth chart and will dictate what signs fall in what houses for you and how your planets are aspected. It's also a really significant point in life, the exact moment in which we were born. Like, what other more significant moments are there than when our soul entered into a body and came into the earth? So it's a very interesting viewpoint to look at yourself from and to learn a lot about yourself from. So this is the male mutable fire sign that's ruled by Jupiter. So that means, guys, that Jupiter is your chart ruler, and that is a big energy. Jupiter is a huge energy that you're giving off and stepping out into the world with. Let's have a quick look at Jupiter for a second. This is the planet of no boundaries, no limits. It blows things up to impossible sizes. This is the planet of good luck, fortune, abundance, higher wisdom, higher knowledge, learning, philosophy, all of those types of topics. And then of course you've got the mutable aspect, which makes the Sagittarius archetype be very changeable, adaptable and fluid. You know, it's not a rigid energy at all. And of course with the fire there, the fire is the raw passion, the expression. You know, fire is hot, you can feel fire. You know when you're around some fire energy, don't you? So it's very important for Sagittarius risings to know where Jupiter is sitting in your chart, what house is it in, what sign is it in, how is it aspected, because this will give you a better understanding of how you're projecting your rising sign. And also let me just say, if you have got any planets sitting in your first house, then this will sort of actually modify the expression of your rising sign. So it does completely depend on your own personal placements. This is just going to be a general look at what it's like to be a Sagittarius rising in this lifetime. So, introduction's over. Let's have a look at it. What's it like to be a Sag rising? Your rising sign dictates what your first house is going to be. So of course we're talking about the Sagittarius in the first house here. And the first house, this is the house of self, identity, the I am house. And it's very much how you're seen. It's the energy you're first given off that people get from you. And as I just said, your chart ruler is Jupiter. So that is the energy you're giving off when people first meet you. And one of the sides of Jupiter and the Sagittarius archetype, of course, is being optimistic and jovial. So you have a bit of you can have a bit of an infectious ripple effect when you meet people. You know, it's a male extroverted fire energy, so you live more on the glass half full type of side of life, and sometimes a bigger than life personality, especially if you are a Jupiter in the first house person. Then you've got a bigger than life personality, and you know, you walk into a room and people are like, whoa, who is that energy? Who is this bright, vibrant person? You know, because it's quite an upbeat energy. It's, of course, we've got a fire sign, the mutable fire sign, sitting in the fire house, because the first house is traditionally the house of Aries. So, you know, fiery, you definitely give off a bit of a fiery vibe when you're meeting people. And the fire is the expression. Anyway, as an element, fire is very expressive. So Sagittarius risings, you like to be able to freely express. You know, this is a big part of your life path, is being able to express, particularly to do with your knowledge. There's other things that you're quite secretive about, which we'll get to as we get around the rest of your chart. But as a rule, Sagittarius is, you like to give off that wisdom. They'll be the type of person, you'll be standing there in a group setting, someone having a conversation. The Sagittarius rising person will always drop an absolute truth bomb or wisdom bomb into a conversation and just add their little je ne sais quoi into it, because knowledge and learning. This is a huge part of your life path. We're talking about Jupiter here, and Jupiter is where we learn through experience. So with this being in your first house in the rising sign, you're always looking for that experience of learning and sharing of knowledge too. So whenever you see an opportunity to drop in your own wisdom and your own thoughts on something, a Sagittarius rising will say that, because another big part of the Sagittarius archetype is actually being very truthful, truth speakers, truth seekers. So they believe in honesty is the best policy, and it's not actually from a mean place or a bad place to try and hurt someone. It's just this sort of no filter and kind of just falls out and can just come out, and you'll just, before you've even put too much thought into it, you've said it because that's what you feel. And it can sometimes be pretty blunt. Sag risings, when we're looking at the house placements of the rest of your chart, which we'll get into, but I think this might be one of the bluntest versions of a Sagittarius that you can get, and I think you will be the people that if there's something that needs to be said, trust me, the Sagittarius rising will say it, even if it's going to cause a bit of offence somewhere. They're still going to say it because they feel it needs to be said. You can come across with a very positive attitude, and you just give off this impression to people that you're someone who's deeply knowledgeable, deeply spiritual, someone who's well travelled or well cultured in some sort of way, because of course Sagittarius is linked to travel and other cultures. So, you know, and it is the centaur. Let's think about it. It is the centaur. Sagittarius also rules the thighs. So when we're traveling, getting about, moving about, many Sagittarius risings like to probably be here, there and everywhere. Sometimes it's not always in the physical sense. It's just even in their minds. A Sagittarius rising is also going to be wandering off and traveling, thinking of the future and, you know, contemplating big topics of life out there. But basically the impression you're giving off to people is you've got quite an unwavering faith in yourself, and it's a very motivating energy. You can easily motivate other people and get people to listen to you when you speak. If you've watched any of my other rising sign videos by now, you'll know that I like to jump around the houses a little bit and put themes together and create that real bigger picture on my Sagittarius guys too. So sister signs, well, I get a lot of the Sagittarius traits, but I like to try and just create a bigger picture through linking themes. So let's get into it. Bear with me. So let's have a look at the third house. The third house for you guys is Aquarius, and this is the male fixed air sign that's ruled by Saturn and co-ruled by Uranus. The third house is traditionally, you know, this is the house of Mercury, traditionally ruled by Gemini. So this is all about thinking and communicating, early childhood, local travelling, siblings and neighbours. So straight off the back, having Aquarius in the third in the thinking and communicating house, you are unique, original and progressive thinkers. You know, the way that your mind works is a little bit unusual to the average Joe, because you can deal with concepts that are literally thousands of years old. So you can contemplate concepts like that, and also concepts that are very futuristic and things that people have never even thought about before. You can deal with both extremes. You're able to contemplate and think about things that are very considered as out there topics. And if we look at the fact that this is the Mercury house, it's sextile to the first house, being a Sagittarius rising, you're expressive anyway, and you like to drop the truth and speak and express. Having Aquarius in the third house, this is the water-bearing sign dealing with, you know, sharing humanity with Earth. So you like to share your knowledge. So you will be that person if you're standing there and you might drop something into a conversation that make people literally be like, what did you just say? Because it's just going to come from like a broader perspective, out there view that people might not have heard of, because you're always going to have something original and unique to say. Freedom is another big part of the Aquarius archetype, having the freedom to think and be a free and unique thinker. And as a Sagittarius rising, you also appreciate other people that are able to freely think. You believe that people should be able to freely think and communicate what their actual viewpoint and thoughts are. And both Sagittarius and Aquarius energies, they are both about higher knowledge, higher learning, understanding bigger topics. They're also both about the absolute truth. truth seekers, truth speakers. You're probably going to hear me say that a few times throughout the video, but this is another reason why a Sagittarius rising believes in speaking the truth, is because they believe in thinking the truth. They want to find out. They've really got that ability and endurance to go deep and deep dive into something, to understand it and put their own unique spin on it. But freedom is just, that's another big part for being a Sagittarius rising. You appreciate and need space and freedom to sort of think and communicate in a way that you see fit. You don't really want someone telling you how you can communicate and what your thought process should be. You're not about this. You've got the fixed signs in the thinking and communicating houses, so you can have, you like to have your own way of thinking and considering of things. Because this is also the house of siblings, you might have, and Aquarius is a bit of an unusual energy, you know, there's definitely weirdness linked with Aquarius. I'm an Aquarius moon, so I really do get it. But the weird element, you might have a bit of an unusual or unorthodox relationship with your siblings in some way. So, and that there is Saturn here, so it could play out in a couple of ways really. There might have been restrictions from you and your siblings, particularly in your early childhood in some way, or it could be a bit of an unorthodox relationship with your siblings whereby you've got loads of siblings. You might have half brothers, half sisters, brothers from another mother and all of that type of jazz. But yeah, just something different there to do with your siblings. And also because it is Saturn in a thinking house, in the communicating house in early childhood, you've probably actually been pretty wise from a young age, pretty mature. People have thought you was pretty mature, pretty good at being by yourself and within your own space, and probably enjoy communicating with older people. In fact, Sagittarius risings, you like to talk to everybody, but you really appreciate that bit of wisdom from an older perspective. Let's jump over to the 9th house now. So the 9th house for you guys is Leo, and this is the male fixed fire sign that's ruled by the sun. And the 9th house is an important house for Sagittarius risings to consider, because of course the 9th house is traditionally the house of Sagittarius. This is the house of Sag and Jupiter, so you've got sun energy sitting up in your 9th house, and the 9th house is all about higher knowledge, higher learning, wisdom, philosophy, religions, travel, bigger picture, basically things not necessarily of the 3D earth. This is the higher knowledge, expansive topics. So when we're talking about sun energy linked with this house, this is one of the reasons why at your core, the sun being the self and how we identify, one big part of you is going to be on a path of learning. This is one of the reasons why. Learning to you and being able to develop and build onto your knowledge base. You've got Saturn in the 3rd, so you like to build onto your knowledge base so that you can turn your ideas into practicality with that placement in your 3rd house that we just spoke through. But here in the 9th house, being able to learn higher topics and be able to share your knowledge with people is a big part of you. It's also considering the fact that this is the truth house. Let's look at it as the truth house. Again, another reason why you believe in the absolute truth, finding out what the truth is. You want to express what you know. You want to express what your knowledge is. Leo is the house of expression. So you love being able to express your knowledge. We need to also consider this as, again, a fire sign in a fire house. So you've got a fiery side. You have fiery temperaments. And with this being the fixed fire, inner thinking and communicating house, because again, as I said, you've got the fixed in the thinking, you're quite firm in your mindset. So from a young age, you've probably always known where you want to go, what you want to be, what you're going to do, or higher knowledge, going to university, for example, is a dream that you've always known you're going to be doing things like that. Or, you know, as you get older, learning and getting qualifications for what you learn is going to be something you really enjoy doing. So you, with Leo in the 9th, of course, this energy is an energy that likes recognition. So you're going to like to be recognised for what you know. You're going to want to love to be recognised and appreciated for the knowledge that you've got, how you share, how you can motivate and inspire people. And with this placement here, it very much shows that you are here to get your own firm belief and understanding of your viewpoint of the world, because looking at your 4th house, which I haven't touched upon yet, we'll get to, but in your 4th house, because that's Pisces, you might have had some sort of religious or spiritual beliefs kind of forced upon you, or that's what you grew up in and were familiar with. So having Leo in the 9th and the higher knowledge learning house means that you need to go off and find your own path of what you do believe. So you might probably have a love for travel, for other cultures, for other languages, other religions, understanding things from a much bigger perspective. But this is fixed fire. So you may have those tendencies to get a little bit stuck on something, a little bit fixated. You might get fixated in a belief. Sagittarius, question a Sagittarius belief system. That's one way to make them argue. So you can be a bit defensive if someone does challenge your really strict your kind of belief system in a way. So just be careful not to get too stuck in what you do believe, because there's obviously so much out there, which I know you know. And you're here to find what's right and to speak the truth. As this is the Jupiter house, and Jupiter is what we learn from experience and an energy that we can learn from basically whatever's sitting in your ninth house. So because you guys have got Leo here, you have probably attracted Leos around you in your life, and in some way you learn well from the Leo archetype. But it's also, it's the male fire energy, so you might learn better from males in one sense, or male presence is significant to moulding your belief systems. But someone who's just confident, who knows how to shine basically, and someone who knows how to express, these are things that you like to see in somebody. Let's have a look at the 12th house now. The 12th house for you guys is Scorpio, and that is the feminine fixed water sign that's ruled by Mars and co-ruled by Pluto. The 12th house is a little bit more of a trickier house to understand, really, because this is where things get a little bit murky, a little bit unclear. There's definitely hidden qualities to this house. It's a deeply spiritual house as well. So considering the fact that Scorpio is notoriously private as an archetype, and that's sitting in a house that's also hidden, and there's topics of isolation and escapism here in this house. So it's kind of double private energy that we're considering here, which is why you've got an extremely private side to you, especially over the deep emotional topics and things that probably go on in the mind, because this is the unconscious. This is the house of the unconscious mind, your subconscious thoughts, things that you're not necessarily aware of, that it's not the most obvious side of your personality, but it sits there. And you've got Scorpio here, so you need to consider this carefully. You need to think about this placement. It's a serious energy to have up in the 12th house. There's probably many aspects to your life and things that you're fascinated by that people do not know about, because you keep it private, you keep it hidden. You might be seriously fascinated by taboo topics, by the darker things that exist in this life. And I think you actually might be aware that there is a slightly darker undertone side to your personality, but you like to keep that hidden, because being a Sagittarius rising, you're used to people receiving you as jovial and more upbeat and optimistic. So these topics, the Scorpio topics, and there's other reasons why, which we'll get to when we get to your 8th house, but the Scorpio themed topics are things you do keep a little bit more quiet about. And this is Mars energy. And when I was thinking about it, if you think of, you've got Mars energy sitting in the unconscious mind house, and then you've also got Aries sitting in your 5th house, and the 5th, which is also Mars ruled. 5th house is the house of expression. So you've got Mars energy sitting in the house of expression, also in the subconscious mind. And you've got the fire signs in the fire houses. So having the fire signs in the fire houses can make you have a bit of an explosive side anyway. So once you pop, you're going to pop. But Mars, if your Mars energy is triggered, it's going to be triggered in your subconscious and how you express. So I think it gives Sagittarius risings actually an extra flair of danger when it comes to that unpredictable or switchy side that can exist. Because it's Sagittarius energy as well, and Jupiter, it can be over the top when it does explode. But just something for you to be mindful of is what's going on in your 12th house, because that is the unconscious mind. So you need to be very much aware and be digging into your subconscious and really make sure you know what's going on in there. Because it is a fixed sign, it's going to give you these controlling tendencies underlying. So underlying on a lot of topics, you prefer to be the person that's in control of that. You don't want to be seen as out of control outwardly to other people. But you would like to be able to kind of sit and ponder your thoughts in private, really, with this sign here. And of course, Scorpio is the sign that represents sex. It, rules the genitals. So, in terms of the sexual activities, you might be up to some stuff in the dark hidden. But because Scorpio is also linked with like the psyche of the mind and stuff like that, you'll be very interested in psychology and understanding other people's mindsets and why does that person do what they do. You highly intuitive, water sign in a water house again, so highly intuitive skills. You probably might walk around and feel a bit like a human lie detector in some way. You know when someone's chatting shit pretty quickly. You know someone's good or bad pretty quickly. You just pick that up. And if you've actually got any planets sitting up here in Scorpio in the 12th house, it's super interesting, because this is definitely someone who could be a psychiatrist, a psychologist, someone who's dreamt of doing something with the mind, because of that power and manipulation side, the darker side, the shadow side of Scorpio. You know, you might be actually aware that you can easily manipulate certain people's minds pretty easily without actually having to do that much. You know, in people into hypnotherapy, things like that, are people with placements, Scorpio in their 12th. Let's have a look at your 5th house. 5th house for you guys, you've got Aries sitting here. So this is the cardinal male fire sign that's ruled by Mars. And the 5th house, this is the house of fun, expression, creativity, children, casual dating and romances, things of that nature. So again, guys, you've got fire sign sitting in a fire house. Fire is expressive as an element, so it gives you this expressive nature. Aries are extremely to the point. This archetype is to the point. This is Mars. This hasn't got time to sugarcoat things. This is to the point. So another one of the reasons why when you do actually express, it might come across blunter than usual, because you're a Sag rising anyway. You've got Aquarius in the 3rd, all about the truth and saying the truth. Aries in the 5th, so when you're going to express, it's just going to be like and bulldozer through, and you might end up offending people without even realising, but it's just kind of is how this placement can kind of play out, I guess. This is, as I just said, the house of romance and casual dating, so it's not long-term relationships, but in terms of a casual sense. So in this area of life, it's probably one that you're not shy in, is it? You know, you're probably quite okay and forthright about what you want and going up to somebody and letting them know, well, I quite like you, let's talk. It's a fast energy, so you might, if that person isn't able to mentally engage and connect with you on an extremely deep level, which we'll get into and look at other houses, but if they don't engage you quickly enough, you might be, you know, on to the next one type of thing, because fast energy, that fast fire when it comes to dating. So there might be that instant attraction, but someone's got to really have the depth and the mental ability to keep up with your intellect to actually hook you in and keep you there. This is another reason why you probably like to go and just do things by yourself as well, because it is an independent energy. This is a very independent, there's so many things about your chart that just scream independence, but you might just go off and do something by yourself because it's the fast fire. There's, of course, you've got an impulsive side, an impulsive nature. You know, when you like to go out and have fun, I think you guys like to go out and have fun. It's kind of like go big, go home type people. Like when you're out, you're out. And you have to be grounded in your day-to-day, which we'll get into, but I think you guys know how to have fun. Also gives you super creative and definitely a super spiritual side to you as well. You know, Aries is a spiritual sign, and this is the house of creativity and expression, so it's important that you've got those outlets that are allowing you to express the creative and spiritual side that you've got. I mean, look at all the placements in your chart as a whole. You're a spiritual being on this earth. And you need to be able to express that. With this being the house of children also, and Mars energy is a little bit selfish. You know, children might not be your number one topic on your list of things to do, because you're going to be like, well, if I have kids, it means I can't do this. You know, you might not be rushing to have children, but let's say you do and you want children, you've got children, because of course it's not to say you can't have children. When you've got children, you know, you're probably going to have very free, independent children, and you're going to bring them up to be fierce and strong and to lead and to be an entrepreneur and to not follow what everyone else is doing and set out their own path in this lifetime. So let's jump over now and look at the 11th house. 11th house for you guys, you've got Libra sitting here, and that is the male cardinal sign that's ruled by Venus, and the 11th house is traditionally the house of Aquarius, and the 11th house is all about your social connections and the collective conscious, basically how things connected collectively, and it's also the friendship house. So Aquarius is a very intelligent energy. I've said this when we spoke about Aquarius in the third. This is the water bearer, dealing with bringing things down from the ether onto the world and humanity. And you've got Venus energy sitting in here, so another reason why you love to learn and love to share your knowledge with the collective. It's something that you just like to do. It's a natural thing for you. And Aquarius is also, this house is very much linked with technology and the future. So you guys love to anything, honestly, anything that can make you work. What's that phrase? Smarter, not harder. If something can make your job quicker or make you do things quicker, like, you're all about that and embracing the future and being, you know, progressive. You know, you love an opportunity to be progressive. You've got Aquarius in the third. You like to think progressively, and you like to be able to be progressive within this, within your lifetime. Now, this is Venus energy sitting in the house of friendship, so you probably love your friendship group, attract all sorts of people from all walks of life, you know, but you probably prefer people, you know, the friendship groups or connections that you're part of, because you will love to be part of a bigger group, of a bigger purpose type setting. But people who are well connected, you know, your friends probably look good. This is Libra we're talking about here, so probably beautiful friends. Or very artsy friends who are well connected themselves, who help you build your wider network in some way. But you will prefer someone probably who's got that social status, who can help you build what it is you're looking to build long term in your future. Probably like to surround yourself with people who are well liked, because being part of these bigger groups does help you keep certain parts of your personality hidden that you do want to keep hidden, and the things that you want to share. You like to connect with people who can help you share that, because this is also, you know, the Venus energy, the relationship planet in the house of friendships. So you might actually prefer to partner up with a friend. You know, if a long-term friend might be someone who actually turns into being your long-term partner, because there's other reasons why, but that mental connection is super important for you guys. And this is air. It's an air sign in an air house, so that mental connection and being able to communicate, this is something that you need in your life. Let's have a look at your seventh house. Seventh house, you've got Gemini sitting there, and that is the male mutable air sign that's ruled by Mercury. And the seventh house, this is the house of relationships, long-term relationships, energies we can get on with on a long-term basis. It also looks at friendships, business partners, contract partners, things of that nature. And again, guys, a reoccurring theme in your chart, you have got an air sign sitting in an air house. So because we've got Gemini sitting here in the relationship house, you've probably found that you've attracted a lot of Gemini energies, Gemini archetypes to you. And I'm not saying that you can only be with long term a Gemini sun, moon, rising person, for example. No, but someone who can definitely access the mercurial energy very much so, because thinking and communicating is a big part of how you connect with somebody. So if there's not that mental connection, so we're talking about the mental here, air is the mental. If you can't find that with somebody, it's not going to work. That, you know, it's a meeting of the minds first. It could even be, you know, similar to like what we just spoke about with Libra in your 11th, someone who's your friend first, who you then get into a relationship with. But you definitely someone who can freely communicate, someone who's got that spontaneous nature to them. You've got Aries in your 5th, you like to just go out and do. Libra in the 11th, you like to be out and about, social settings, things like that. But you definitely need someone who's got that spontaneity to them, that younger spirit, because Gemini has got that younger spirit like energy linked with it. So, you know, someone who can have fun. You might even be attracted to people who are younger than you, or that just, you know, basically can access their inner child. It's very important. But because this is air, it's of course the mental connection. So someone who can stimulate you, someone who can keep up with your intelligence level, someone who will ask you questions further about what you know. Gemini is super inquisitive as an energy. A theme linked with Gemini energy as well, though, actually, is freedom. And as we know, you're a Sagittarius rising. You've got Aquarius in the 3rd. Freedom is a big thing for you guys too. You love freedom. You don't want that restriction. So you need a partner who's got their own interests and has their own independence and gives you their space. You know, Aries in the 5th house, casual dating and stuff. If someone tries to be all over you and smother you and wants to spend every second with you, you're going to be like, no, stop. find your own thing to do. You know, you kind of need your own space a little bit. So someone who you can go off and have fun with and do all these things, but also someone who gives you that time and space. You could end up even partnering and going into business with your siblings or something like that. And yeah, I said in Aquarius in the third, some sort of an orthodox relationship with your siblings anyway, but siblings more friends really than a sibling in some way. You have got the mutable signs in all of the angular houses, and so that shows a big part of your life path is to stay flexible, to keep it moving, to keep things fresh. And Gemini, they know how to keep things moving, keep things fresh, switch things up a little bit. This is mutable energy, so you need that mutability around you too, someone who isn't too stuck and rigid in their ways. That's just, it's not what you really need in a long-term partner. Let's look at your second house. Second house, you've got Capricorn sitting there. That is the feminine cardinal earth sign that's ruled by Saturn. And the second house is the house of values, stability, building, what we have, what we're doing to build for our long-term future. So having Capricorn energy sitting there, and Saturn is the part of our chart basically where the brakes are kind of put on and where things slow down a little bit. So you've got obviously Jupiter energy ruling you first, which is no limits, no boundaries, no restrictions whatsoever. And then we look at your second house and it's Saturn, boundaries, limits and restrictions, art and values, money, possessions, things that you have. Like the second house is all about what you've got in this lifetime. So you have probably from quite a young age been quite serious about building, you know, and having long-term goals and being quite ambitious about what you want to do. Capricorn is definitely that big boss CEO energy, you know, and this is the house of values. So you will have value in Capricorn like topics, which is career, stability, status, public image, how you're seen. These things are very important for you guys, and you're all about, you know, how to actually build long term. You'll all be about building for the long term so you can achieve your goals. And because you've got the earth signs actually sitting in the working houses and the building houses, career houses, you've got really strong work ethic. And Capricorn, Saturn in the house of, you know, what's very much looked at as money. It's not just all about money, but let's look at money. Quite frugal, potentially, with your money. Depending, of course, if you've got planets in this house that might change that. But if we're just considering it as a Saturn ruled sign, excuse me, quite frugal with their money. You know, they're not wasteful. They're not just going to splash and spend on silly things. No, like these will probably be the first people to pull back when times get hard. They'll be like, right, I'm not gonna have any takeaways, I'm gonna have some beans on toast instead. Maybe put a bit of cheese on there, make it a bit fancy, but if I've got to have beans and toast for a week because times are hard, that's what I've got to do. So they will get that. They'll be very practical with what they've got, you know, they won't be silly with it. And, you know, if they give, I think somebody with Capricorn in the second, you know, if you borrowed somebody some money, you know, there are some signs that would just never ask for that back. They'd be like, whatever, I'll get it back. You'd be like, you got that money, you got that 20 quid I borrowed you. Like, you won't forget if you've loaned money out, and you're not going to be easily giving your money out anyway because you know you're building for something long term. But having this Capricorn big boss energy in your second house of long term building, you should definitely be out here working for yourself, building your own empire, putting all your passions, all that fire, all that drive that you've got into your own business, because you have some control freak tendencies in some ways when it comes to you working on, especially like, you know, Scorpio in the 12th with your mind. You do prefer to be in control, so it's probably better that you're running your own business so that you can do that. Let's look at your 8th house now. So the second house we just spoke through is everything what you've got, and it's all kind of about what I have and your money. 8th house, this is where we're talking about things with other people, really, the shared resources and shared finance house, but it's also the house of sex, taboo topics, death, rebirth, the deep transformational crisis house. And you've got the Cancer energy sitting there, which is a very emotional sign. Cancer literally represents the emotions and the feelings, and it's also the cardinal feminine water sign that's ruled by the moon. So we've kind of got moon energy sitting up in 8th house. You need to be very aware of where your moon is basically, and what is your moon doing, but you need to pay close attention to your emotions. But This is a deeply emotional sign, as I just said, the Cancer archetype, but it's sitting up in the 8th house. This is also a very secretive and hidden house. Ooh, hidden. So your emotions, this is another reason why you keep your emotions under wraps, really. It's something very, very, very private that you keep to yourself. You don't want your emotions and the deep transformational and deep changes that you've gone through to be outwardly revealed. You don't want people to know your sensitive spot. You don't want someone to be able to get at you and trigger your emotions, because this is the thing with Sagittarius Rising, it's so fiery. You can come across very, nonchalant sometimes, but you've got a very sensitive side deep down, but you're very protective over that. So when we consider the fact that this is a very secretive house, and it's also the house of taboo topics, death, rebirth, sex, occult, there's certain things, those topics might be the area that you're actually not comfortable expressing about. You don't want to talk about your sex life with people, or you don't want to talk about the really deep, dark sides of life necessarily with people. You don't want to talk about death too much. It's not that these aren't things that you consider deeply, it's just it's an inward process. And again, of course, we've got a water sign and a water house, which gives you that sensitive side, and having this Cancer energy and this deep-seated emotion house, you've definitely got a very caring and nurturing side. And Pisces in the 4th, you've definitely got a very caring and nurturing side to you, but again, highly intuitive. You really can sense things, you just know what's up, really. Your intuition skills are high, and you might also feel that you can pick up other people's emotions very well and very quickly. You can work out someone's emotional state. Now, this is the house of shared resources, so when it does come to you sharing, kind of like what I was just saying about Capricorn in your 2nd house, you will use those Cancer traits, will be used over the topics of shared resources. So i.e. you would rather be in control and quite protective of shared resources. You're not just going to be sharing everything willy-nilly. There's a bit of an emotional connection to what you have, and when it comes to sharing with other people, or it could be that a lot of your shared resources actually come from the family, the home, the mother. There's a connection there, but protective over what's yours, very much so. This is also, of course, the house of sex, and so when it comes to you being able to get that deep sexual connection with someone, there must be emotions involved. So looking at how your relationships are, air is the preferred element. So of course you need the mental stimulation connection, but also if there's somebody who has got all of that air about them and can mentally stimulate you, etc., but can also deeply connect on an emotional level and display those Cancerian like traits, nurturing, caring, that's when you'll deeply be able to connect with sex. So in that area of life, it's definitely somewhere you're looking for a lot of love and a lot of passion, really. Passion's definitely a thing. Aries in the 5th house, so when with that topic, passion is a thing. It really is. It's an important quality for you to get with somebody, and if you can't get that, then you're not going to be able to connect long term. Because this is also the crisis house, internal crisis. When you guys are going through an internal crisis because it's with your emotions, and you're having an emotional transformation, it's something you do in private, and you guys will be so good at using and leading with your fire energy to get you out of these darker times. Because Sag Risings, you come across so jovial, people must think, oh, they're the luckiest person in the world, nothing ever happens to them. No, your emotions run deep. You have deeply transformative emotions and situations that you have to face in this lifetime. It's just that you know how to use that Sag Jupiter energy leading in your 1st house on how to have an optimistic viewpoint and see the bigger picture. You can see an opportunity, basically, even in a crisis time. Capricorn in the 2nd, you're going to find that opportunity to build. We'll look at your 6th house in a second, but there's reasons why you look at it and you can find those opportunities to build that's going to take you to where you need to be. Let's look at the 6th house. 6th house, you've got Taurus sitting there, and Taurus is the feminine fixed earth sign that's ruled by Venus. And the 6th house, this is traditionally the house of Virgo, which is all about your health, service, day-to-day routine, day-to-day work, things like that. So having Venus energy in the house of the day-to-day work and routine means that you guys need that day-to-day routine and structure applied to you every day in order for you to be successful. I mean, the Venus energy is what we look to actually in terms of how we get our money. And so, you know, what you're doing every single day will be linked with how you earn your money. That's a similar picture really with Virgo up in the 10th house, which we'll get to. But considering the 2nd house, you guys prefer a structure, a plan that you can stick to. This is an energy that Taurus does know how to play hard and work hard at the same time. They're actually quite good at getting that balance. So in order for you to have that fine balance, you definitely need to be in tune with your Taurus 6th house energy and making sure that you have got the structure and routine needed that's still going to help you build the successful path that you need to be on. But it probably means that, you know, in your day-to-day, there's something there with beauty that you prefer to be surrounded with, that love the outdoors, for example, or you want to bring the outdoors inside to you, you know. Sagittarius like to explore anyway and be out and about, but you know, in just a general environment, you prefer a more relaxed working environment, not where you can kind of do your own thing. Basically, Capricorn in the 2nd, that's big CEO energy, running your own business. If you run your own business and you stick into your day-to-day routine, you can think how nice that'd be, because you can dictate your own daily structure and routine because you're building your own business. This is the earth sign again in an earth house, so you definitely have a grounded side of you that you can tap into. You know, you might actually be quite religious with your day-to-day routines, have a serious love for food and a love for rest. You love to have a good old nap, but like things to look good, taste good, smell good. You might even be into vegan or organic food only, but something concerned with health. Or you might just find that because we've got the Venus energy here sitting in the 6th house, that just in your day-to-day, as you're going about, you come across opportunities in your day-to-day routine that you can turn into money, turn into business, turn into something bigger and successful. You might just come across that, or maybe just found it easy really to walk into different types of jobs throughout your life. You know, opportunities kind of come your way, and probably a lot through your connections, your Venus up in the 11th, who, you know, what, you know, helps you get to where you want to be. Let's have a look at the other house to do with career and building long term. 10th house. 10th house for you guys, you've got Virgo sitting there. So that is the feminine mutable earth sign that's ruled by Mercury. And the 10th house, this is the house of long-term career, what we do long-term for work, our public image, our status, how we're seen really. And so you guys, you've got Virgo sitting there, which is mutable, as I just said, and that's important to point out because your 1st house is how you're seen, how you perceive. Your 10th house is also how you're seen. And looking at both of those, you've got mutable energies. So how people see you is as a highly adaptable, changeable and fluid person. People do not see you as rigid in any way, because it's Mercury energy sitting up in the angular house. Again, why it's very important for Sagittarius Risings to be seen for their mind. You know, you want to be well received for your mind. You want to be known for the thoughts that you have and how you're able to communicate. You know, you will care what people think of what it is that you think and how you come across. You know, you have got Leo in the 9th. You do kind of want some sort of recognition for your knowledge and the wisdom that you share. Because this is the career house, you would make a fantastic teacher, researcher, medical practitioner of some sort, nurse even, something to do with healthcare, and not only just physical healthcare, like mental healthcare. Virgo is it's a super intelligent energy. It's Mercury ruled. So something with your career needs to be where you're allowed to use the mind and where you're able to think and communicate, kind of similar to having Gemini energy sitting up in a 10th house. Thinking and communicating is a big part of your career really, and what you need to be involving in to make you feel fulfilled. As I just touched upon, in your 6th house, what you're doing day to day matters, because Virgo in the 10th house, the Virgo archetype, this is representing this archetype, the day-to-day routine and day-to-day structure. So what you do in each day is directly linked towards with how you build your long-term career. And so, i.e., if every day you're sitting there chilling or just doing what you want, you're tapping too much into your Aries 5th house energy and your Libra 11 just wanting to go out and do stuff, and you're not sticking to your rigid structure to build every day, then guess what you're going to build? Guess what you're going to actually end up with? If every single day you are keeping to your routine and your structure and your plan that you've got, you're going to just go beyond places, because Virgo, it's definitely got a control freak energy to it, nitpicky, critical, detail orientated. So when it comes to your career, this is where these traits will play out for you guys, and because of that need for things to be right and in a certain way, this is why it's better that you do work for yourself, really, because then you can't be too nitpicky because it's yourself, you're running the business sort of thing. So, and also because you being a Sag rising and Aquarius in the 3rd, the thoughts that you have are so out there, progressive, big visions, things that other people can't quite see. They might not be able to see how you get into your vision. Sag shoots the arrow and there it goes. So if you are running your own business, you can have all those nitpicky control details that you've got and the details that you want included into what you're trying to achieve. You can do that yourself. But I think just having the earth signs in the earth houses is such a good foundation and starting point for Sag risings for you to access. If you can be grounded and you can stick to your day-to-day, you guys are going to build empires. So last house, guys, the 4th house. Let's have a look at it. You've got Pisces in the 4th house. This is the feminine mutable water sign that's ruled by Jupiter. So you've got Jupiter as your chart ruler, and you've also got Jupiter ruling over the 4th house of Pisces. So that's twice we've got Jupiter ruling over a sign in your chart, but because these are the angular houses, this is quite prominent. And the 4th house, this is the house of home, roots, traditions, family, our ancestors, the mother, the nurturer received as a baby, really. So again, guys, another theme in your chart, you've got water sitting in a water sign sitting in a water house. So you have that sensitive side, and Pisces is arguably the most sensitive and compassionate sign that exists out of all 12. And this is sitting in your deep house of emotions. So, you know, you've definitely got a deep, caring, sensitive side to you, but it's hidden. It's not what people first will see when they meet you. It's only if someone really knows you that you've actually got this side to you. But growing up with Pisces in the 4th, there's a few different ways in really that could play out. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why your emotions can be easily triggered. But because this is Jupiter energy in the house of home, growing up you could have just been, you know, completely smothered in your mother's love, basically, and an unconditional love, no boundaries, like do what you want. Pisces, however, though, let's be real for a second, because this is the sign where we do talk about addictions, isolation, escapism, drugs, alcohol. High possibility here with this sign that you grew up seeing things that you probably shouldn't have been seeing as a child, however, but you saw addiction, you saw drink, drugs, alcohol. You might have seen alcohol dependent, drug dependent people around you. But also Pisces is a super spiritual sign. Whoa. So the spiritual beliefs, you might have grown up with some very with parents that have some very out there ideas. There could be spiritual leaders, spiritual gurus, for example, religious, but there was some sort of spirituality or religious beliefs that you just grew up in. You could have also grown up in a bit of a chaotic environment where there could have been just a lot of people around. This is the mutable water sign, so it could have been a bit of a chaotic environment. Also an element of delusions or illusions over your childhood. So it could be, especially if you've got actual placements sitting here, particularly if you're a Neptune 4th house person, for example, just secrets, things weren't clear to you as a child, what was really happening in your family. It's only when you grow up, you're like, oh my gosh, and you find out what was actually going on. But just some sort of illusions and delusions around your childhood, a little bit of unclarity that you might have felt. But you definitely have a strong spiritual basis and core and a spiritual foundation that you're coming from, and why, again, you're going to be interested into these deeper, more out there topics in life because of things you would have seen and been exposed to growing up. And freedom is another thing here, emotional freedom. You know, you will need, again, as I said, if someone's trying to smother you, it's just going to be too much. You need the freedom to move, the freedom to think, and you need the freedom to feel in your own time, in the privacy of your own home. It's such a creative energy too, and maybe most of your creative ideas, or when you feel you can be at your most creative, is when you're at home. You probably see your home as your safe space where you can be who you want to be, and most of where your imagination can come to life, basically, where you can let loose and be free. So sometimes, you know, having your own space is definitely important for having Pisces in the 4th. You definitely need sometimes to be shut off from other people's thoughts and other people's feelings, and just have time to recharge, so you can go back out into the world with that Sag rising optimism and go and get what you want in this life. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. That was my video on Sagittarius rising. If there was anything that I said that you liked or could relate to, then drop me a like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, then of course subscribe and come with me on my astro journey through YouTube. I'm trying to grow. And coming up in my next video, we're going to be talking all about the Capricorn rising. So I'll see you in my next video.